Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. We're going to explore the different types of learners with special needs and see how understanding their unique learning styles can really change the way we teach. Just a quick note, this video is for educational purposes only. If you find this helpful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more content. Let's dive in and discover how we can support every learner to reach their full potential. Now, before we jump into the full discussion, let me share our objectives for this session. First, we will define the different types of special needs. Second, we will look at the etiologies and causes behind these special needs. And third, we will look and explore the learning characteristics that help us understand how these learners grow and learn best. Alright, let's keep going. Have you ever wondered what it's like for a classmate who uses a wheelchair or has difficulty seeing to move around the school and take part in class activities? How might their school day feel different from yours? When we think about them, we're talking about physical and sensory disabilities. Let's zoom in on sensory disabilities. These affect how a person receives or processes information through their senses. The most common types are hearing impairments and visual impairments. So when we talk about hearing impairments, it makes harder to understand sounds and speech. And when we talk about visual impairments, it affects how someone sees and interprets the world. Now let's talk about visual impairment. According to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act or IDEA, a visual impairment is an impairment in vision that even with correction adversely affects a child's educational performance. These can include partial sight or legal blindness, and it's important to understand that these challenges can impact how a student accesses information, navigates the classroom, and participates in activities. When we get a bit more clinical, blindness and low vision are often described using visual acuity. Visual acuity means sharpness of vision, ranging from mild reductions to complete absence of light. So this measures how sharp or clear someone's vision is. It's usually shown as a fraction like 20 over 20 or 20 over 200, which tells us the distance at which a person can see what someone with normal vision can see at 20 feet. The lower the clarity, the more it can affect a student's learning and daily activities. Visual impairments can be classified by how sharp a person's vision is. There is mild visual impairment with a visual acuity of 20 over 30 to 20 over 60, moderate visual impairment from 20 over 70 to 20 over 200, severe low vision, legal blindness, and total blindness having no total light perception. Each level influences mobility and learning differently. Visual impairments can happen for several reasons. One common cause is errors of refraction, where the eye doesn't bend light properly. This includes hyperopia or farsightedness, which makes near objects blurry, myopia or nearsightedness, making distant objects blurry, and astigmatism, when the cornea or lens is irregularly shaped, causing distorted vision. Other causes involve eye muscle imbalances like strabismus or cross-eyedness, where the eyes aren't aligned. We have amblyopia, often called lazy eye, where one eye is weaker than the other, and also nystagmus, which causes uncontrolled eye movements. Finally, diseases of the eye can lead to visual impairment, such as cataracts, which cloud the lens, we have diabetic retinopathy caused by high blood sugar affecting the retina, coloboma, a congenital gap in eye structures. We also have retinitis pigmentosa, a progressive inherited retinal disease, and glaucoma, which damage the optic nerve. Each of these conditions can affect how a student sees and learns, so understanding them is a key to making classrooms more accessible. Now, students with visual impairments often learn through touch and hearing. Concepts usually picked up through sight can take longer to grasp, and interpreting visual information like charts or pictures can be tricky. Reading and writing may develop more slowly, and picking up social cues can be a challenge. They often need extra time and support for fine motor tasks and moving around safely their environment. Now that we've looked at visual impairments, let's turn our attention to hearing impairment, which affects how a person perceives and processes sound. Hearing loss can be congenital, present at birth due to genetics, prenatal factors, or birth complications, or it can be adventitious, which is acquired after birth from illness, injury, aging, or exposure to loud noise. It can also be classified by timing relative to speech development. Prelingual hearing loss occurs before a child develops spoken language, often requiring specialist interventions, while postlingual hearing loss happens after language acquisition, affecting communication but not foundational language skills. Finally, degrees of hearing loss range from hard of hearing, where some auditory communication is possible with support, to deafness, a profound loss where visual methods like sign language are primary. Now that we know the types of hearing impairment, let's look at how hearing impairment is classified. This helps us understand where it occurs and how it affects the ears. First, we can classify it by the part of the ear affected. Conductive hearing loss occurs in the outer or middle ear, which disrupts the transmission of sound to the inner ear. Common causes include earwax buildup, middle ear infections, abnormal bone growth, or ossicle malformations. This type is often treatable medically or surgically, and hearing aids can be helpful. Next, we have sensorineural hearing loss, which involves damage to the inner ear or cochlea, or auditory nerve. Causes can be genetic, viral infections, noise exposure, aging, or certain medications. This type is generally less reversible than conductive hearing loss. We have mixed hearing loss, which combines both conductive and sensorineural problems. And lastly, the central hearing disorder, which arises from dysfunction in the central auditory nervous system, affecting how the brain processes sound. Second, it could be by ear involvement. It could be unilateral, meaning hearing loss is one ear only, or it could be bilateral, means both ears are affected. After looking at how hearing impairment is classified, it's important to understand what causes it. Knowing the causes helps us understand and support students better in school. Some causes are genetic, like inherited genes or chromosomal changes that affect ear development. Others are infections, such as rubella, cytomegalovirus, mumps, or repeated ear infections in early childhood. It could be environmental factors, which also play a role, like long-term exposure to loud noise or certain medications that can lead or damage the inner ear. And sometimes trauma like birth complications, head injuries, or sudden pressure changes, which can lead to hearing loss. Now that we know the causes of hearing impairment, let's look at how it shows up in daily life. People with hearing loss often cup their hand behind the ear or tilt their head to catch sounds, and may strain or appear blank when listening. They rely on vibrations, gestures, and visual cues like watching speakers' lips closely. And they may be less responsive to sounds, music, or voices, and often ask for repetition or fail to respond to oral questions. Um, they may also show marked imitativeness at work and play. They often fail to respond to oral questions, often ask for repetition of questions and statements, often unable to follow oral directions and instructions, has difficulty in associating concrete with abstract ideas, has poor general learning performance. So that's it. Now, let's focus on communication disorders.